Hi, everybody. This is Sarah Griffith, and I wanted to give you a little bit of a recap on my recent Whole30 experience. At this point, I have since completed the Whole30 program, and I thought it would be helpful if I did some reflecting with you and shared with you what some of the successful things that I found from the program were, some of the things that were maybe challenging, and just my overall take on the program and why I see it to be something that's beneficial. And so I hope that you'll listen for a few moments and hear about my experience so that you can better determine if this is something that you're interested in doing as a way to propel your health in a different direction in this season that you're in right now. And so I think that it's important that I share specifics with you as far as when I did it. So I did Whole30 during what I would consider to be a difficult time of year. I started Whole30 on November 1st, and I proceeded to do it through early December. Whole30, it actually is not just 30 days. I know that the name is a little bit misleading because it says Whole30, but truthfully, if you do Whole30 in its entirety, there's a reintroduction phase, which actually causes the program to be 7 weeks in length. And so I think it's important to know going into this is that no, you're not really just signing up for 30 days. If you want to do it correctly, you're signing up for the reintroduction phase as well. I also think that it's important that I share with you that this was not my first experience with Whole30. That makes a ton of a difference because Whole30 has a little bit of a learning curve to it whenever you're learning the rules, you're getting used to the cooking. I will say that it has been several years since I have done it, but it wasn't my first time. So this was probably my fourth attempt, and it's my third attempt to do it from start to finish. The one time that I did it about 8 years ago when I tried it, I did not successfully complete it. I think I only made it about 2 weeks, and then I decided that I didn't want to do it. And so, anyways, I think that if you're going to do Whole30, you should know that each time you do it, it does get easier. And I think that your experience becomes more and more positive the more you learn the rules of it and you just learn the ways of it. And so I will share with you that I went into this with a goal, and the goal was that I worked on two things. I worked on eating in a way that honored my body's current health needs. And so I will share with you that I have Hashimoto's. It's an autoimmune disorder, and I also have psoriasis, which also is an autoimmune disorder. And for me, one of the top foods that is recommended that I avoid to feel the best is gluten. So gluten is up there on the list of like, do not eat it. Dairy is high on the list as well as something that I really shouldn't have much of, if any at all. And then I actually struggle a lot with my metabolic health when it comes to blood sugar regulation. And so I have for about 8 or 9 years, I've been diagnosed with hypoglycemia. In particular, it's reactive hypoglycemia. And so what happens is when I eat anything that has processed sugar, my blood sugar goes on a roller coaster. I can show you this because I have proof from the continuous glucose monitors that I've worn for many years. But anything with added sugar, it's really not a good choice for me. And so I had to get to this place where I can be in a place where my foods don't contain added grams of sugar. At least I'm limiting it minimally. It's very hard to do zero, and Whole30 is zero, so it's a great thing for my blood sugar, but it's hard. I won't pretend that it's not hard. But anyways, that was my reason because of my health issues, is that I wanted to eat this way, because really, in an ideal world, even when I'm not doing Whole30, I would be eating in a way that is very, very similar to Whole30. And so for me, that is something that I wanted to get towards doing. But also, I had spent the primary half of the end of summer and beginning of fall working solely on getting my exercise habits really nailed in. I was working on walking every single day and doing strength training every single day, Monday through Friday. And so once I felt like I had that behavior down and I was like doing it very consistently, my next goal was to nail down on my nutrition. And I won't say that I was eating poorly, because I really wasn't, and I don't eat super poorly, but I will say that my focus had wavered, and I was finding myself spending less and less time in the kitchen and more time, ordering a salad that's takeout or getting something that came from a restaurant, rather than me being in control of what I know went into my foods. And so I decided that I wanted to take back control of that, and I wanted to spend from November into December really setting myself up to have a strong foundation going into 2025 when it came to my nutrition. And so that's why I decided to do Whole30. I did it alongside a group of other women, and I actually coached them through their Whole30 experience. And so what this looked like was that every week I made a meal plan for all of us, and that meal plan was 7 days. And then what I also did was it was every meal. It was breakfast, lunch, a snack, and dinner. So they were getting, it was like, I think it's over 28 meals a week that I was giving them. And then in addition, what I was doing was, when I would build the meal plan, on a separate sheet, I would build their grocery list. And so I would analyze every recipe that we were using in our meal plan, and I would create a grocery list from it. So then they would know what ingredients they had to get at the store to be able to then create the foods that were on their Whole30 meal plan. Now, what would happen after that is that, so they would get that, and it was obviously their responsibility to do all the cooking, the prep work, the shopping, but then every Sunday, in addition to having an in-person, I did in-person and online, but in addition to having the in-person meeting and the online meeting for those who weren't able to come in person, we would get together and we would just recap the week. We'd talk about what our wins were, what were difficult, what we were learning from the program. We'd sometimes share like, oh, this was a great snack. Like, we were just getting through Whole30 together. Excuse me. And then after we would do that portion where we would just kind of recap how we were doing and whatnot, then I would do a health lesson. And so I would spend about an hour teaching them about different health topics that went along with the things that we were focusing on during Whole30. And so I spent a lot of time with these women, and these women were also really important in my Whole30 journey, because I found that they kept me accountable. Obviously, I had to be accountable. I was the one leading them through this program, but it also helped me want to stick with this because I wasn't trying to do it alone. And they understood the hard days that I was going through. And the first few days are difficult as you're kind of removing all the sugar out. And I don't want to say detoxing, but you're detoxing from sugar and other like carbs and whatnot that you maybe used to have all the time, and now you're really cutting it back. And so there's this phase where in the beginning where you really are like, you need a buddy. And so having that buddy system was helpful. Now, I will say that as you go along and you go through it, I call it your mental toughness and your mental focus, if you do it correctly and you really stick with it, it's almost like a dial. And honestly, it's like every single week as we just get more and more into it, it just gets turned up, turned up, turned up. And by the end of Whole30, I felt like I was really in a good place from a mental focus standpoint when it came to my health, my nutrition, and the goals that I had set for myself. I told you this, but I did Whole30 during a difficult time of year because it was Thanksgiving leading into Christmas. And here's what I want to say about this. Thanksgiving was hard. I can't sugarcoat it. I can't pretend that it wasn't. It was hard. I had to bring all of my own food to Thanksgiving. I had to plan for that. I had to bring food back home when I traveled for my brother's birthday in early November. I brought my own food. I didn't eat the cake. I hosted a party here that was a birthday party for a friend. Again, I didn't eat the cake. Like, there were so many times during my Whole30 experience where I had to find myself turning up my mental toughness and my mental focus and saying that food isn't going to get me any closer to the goals that I currently have, and you're not going to cancel on yourself. You signed up to do Whole30. You signed up to follow this through to the end, and you're not going to cheat on what you said you were going to do. I felt very passionately that I was going to show up for myself in a way that maybe a few months prior I would have been like, yeah, who cares? Let's just have it anyways. No worries. That version of me was not the version of me that I showed up as during this Whole30 experience. I was mentally tough, I was mentally focused, and I was driven, and I did not waver from the plan. I didn't cheat's like not a great word. I don't like that word, but I didn't cheat on Whole30. I did Whole30 100% in its entirety the whole way through. And because of it, I got great results. I will say that things that changed in me. My skin doesn't look good right now because, to be honest with you, Whole30 has been done for a few weeks, and I did have sugar over the holidays, and I think it's written all over my face. But my skin really was glowing, especially towards the end. The first week or two, you're kind of like, oh, I'm doing all this work, but is it working? That is how it kind of feels. But by the last 2 weeks, you're spot on. Your mental toughness is turned up. Your results start to show. So my skin was glowing. I was sleeping amazing. It was amazing the way I was sleeping. I wasn't having any cravings for foods that weren't within the Whole30 plan, because when you do Whole30, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this or not, but Whole30, the goal is not to be hungry. It's not to be restrictive in a way that you don't eat until you have satiety. The goal is that you eat as much as you need to eat to feel good. It's about eliminating those food groups that are the common irritants for most people. It's taking them away so that then when you do reintroduction, you can determine what are the foods that are best for your body. So you're not chasing weight loss, you're not chasing those types of things. However, I'm going to tell you that weight loss is, even though it's not the goal we go after, weight loss is a byproduct of Whole30 naturally, especially if you're someone whose eating habits were not similar to Whole30. Say you were somebody who was consuming sugar, gluten, dairy, alcohol, grains, and now you do Whole30 and you cut all of those out, you will see drastic weight loss. For some people, it's from anywhere from 10 to 15 pounds in a month. Someone who may have less weight to lose, it's smaller. It can be between like 3 and 7 pounds. But as much as Whole30 does not promote themselves to be a weight loss program, 100%, it is an inflammation loss, it's a weight loss, it's an inches loss kind of program. And so what tends to happen is your last week, especially even when you're in reintroduction, again, your cravings are going to change, your sleep's changing, your skin's changing, your mood's changing, your rings will spin right off your fingers because the inflammation is just going away. You'll see it in your face. All of my clients who did it with me this past time, I could see it in their face right away. Probably by week 3, they just looked so sculpted, and that was where it was going. It was going from immediately from their face. Some were losing weight, some were having different, we call them NSVs, non-scale victories. And so it was a really good thing for them. It was a good thing for me too. So I shared with you that I've been doing strength training, walking, like exercise starting in August, and now also focusing on nutrition. And so I can tell you that it's now the end of December. I started doing the workouts first and then the nutrition later, but in this small window of time from the end of August to the end of December, at this point I have lost over 15 pounds, all in a very safe and healthy way, in a way that's been honoring my own body's inflammation, eating in a way that I'm not hungry, I don't feel deprived, and I've just been really proud of the way that I'm doing this. And so one of the things that you can decide when you do Whole30 is you can decide if you'd like to do it again. It's really not meant to, Whole30 is not meant to be the whole way you eat the rest of your life, because if we're being very honest with each other, it is very restrictive. And it requires a ton of mental toughness. It requires a ton of pre-planning. And it is something that long term it is not, I hate to say it's not sustainable, but it is not sustainable long term, meaning that this would be very difficult to live this way for a long period of time. Because again, so much planning, so much cooking, so much whatever. It's not saying that it's impossible, and it's also not saying that there aren't certain people who need to eat this way. Certain diagnoses require, like, you're never eating sugar again, or you're never eating grains again, like whatever. And I think that when your diagnosis becomes something like that, you just learn that this is what I have to do so that my body can feel okay, and you just learn to deal with it. But again, I don't think that this needs to be the rest of your life, every part of your life, because it's hard. But what I will say is that for me, I got great results. I felt great. And again, the way that I was eating on Whole30 was it was very important to be eating this way even when I'm not doing Whole30. So really, I should be having very minimal to 0 grams of added sugar. I really shouldn't be drinking alcohol. I really shouldn't be eating gluten, or certain grains or dairy. So like a lot of Whole30 is where I need to be. And so I also think that is why Whole30 felt easy, because from a outsiders looking in, I was close. The way I was eating was already really close to Whole30. I think if you've never done Whole30 and you've been like at McDonald's and you've been eating processed foods and living off soda, and this is your starting point, it's hard. I would be like, that's a hard starting point. But I also find that some people do better with all in versus like it's an all or nothing with some people. And so perhaps that's your personality style. This comes down to like, is it right for your personality style too? And one of the last things that I want to say as I kind of get ready to wrap this is that if you are somebody who struggles with an eating disorder, I don't know that Whole30 is for you, because again, it requires such a level of extreme focus, extreme planning, extreme like mental toughness that it could cause mental fatigue in someone who had struggled with that in the past. And I think it could take you to a place with all of the restrictions that may not be healthy. That's just my 2 cents. Personally, that's not a professional suggestion, but that is just me saying that if you are somebody who struggles with that, I don't know that this would be a good choice for you. It's just my 2 cents. But anyways, so I will be continuing. I'm going to do another round of this. Again, I'm not trying to live this way forever. I'm just trying to continue to take my body to its best version of itself, its best place, continue to decrease inflammation in my body, continue to remove the foods that don't love me back so that my body can be in a good place so that I can function at my best and I can just be the best and most healthy version of myself. And so what I will plan to do is another 30 days of Whole30. The reintroduction phase is less appealing to me because, again, I just told you, I don't really want to be adding gluten back in. I don't want to be adding, like, the whole point of the reintroduction is to add it in to see how your body responds to it. And again, my goal isn't to add it in. It's just to learn how to be so good at this lifestyle that I don't keep it in my diet. And so for me, I will do the 30 days. I don't know that I will do the reintroduction, and then I'll reassess where I am from there. And so if you're interested in doing Whole30 alongside me, you are welcome to reach out. I will be offering coaching services just like I did last time. These ones will just be online. I won't be doing in person for the month of January for Whole30. But again, you're still going to get the same services. You could still get the meal plan, the grocery list, and then that weekly recording of content on a health topic just to help guide you through. So if this is something that you're interested in, please reach out to me. But anyways, thanks for letting me share this journey with you. I hope that it's been helpful, and I hope it's inspired you to take your nutrition to another level in this coming year.